I want to ensure that I balance my information. Hence, I'm presenting the authentic address that was delivered by the Prime Minister of Burkina Faso, who represented his President Ibrahim Traore at the UN Assembly. Let's examine what Burkina Faso's Prime Minister actually said at the UN and why Ibrahim Traore's own address, purported address is viral. Last week at the United Nations General Debate, the person who spoke for Burkina Faso from the UN podium was Rimtalba Jean Emmanuel Ouedraogo, not Ibrahim Traore, the country's interim prime minister and government spokesperson, not Ibrahim Traore, as I repeated. Ouedraogo used the forum to register a blunt critique of multilateral systems that, in his words, too often leave Africa excluded from decision-making and dissatisfied with the result of expensive peacekeeping mission. Those are on this thing. The address appears in the UN General Debate record and on UN Web TV. Watch the address and the assembly here, and then we'll get back.
As the assembly.
Madam President, Secretary General of the United Nations, Heads of Delegation, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor and privilege to address you on behalf of President Captain Ibrahim Traore, President of Burkina Faso, Head of State, during this session, to convey the voice of the dignified, honest people of Burkina Faso. I would therefore like to convey fraternal greetings to you, to all citizens of the world committed to peace and freedom. Madam President, on behalf of Burkina Faso, I would like warmly to congratulate you upon your election to the presidency of this, the 80th session. Your election bears witness to the trust of the international community in your leadership, your ability to listen to other views, and to dialogue. In Burkina Faso, you will find a sincere, constructive, and committed partner. I would also like to express my gratitude to your predecessor, Mr. Philemon Yang. My gratitude for the high quality and rigor of the work he undertook during the previous session. Madam President, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Burkina Faso fully aligns itself with the statement delivered on behalf of the Alliance of Sahel States by the Republic of Mali, together with Niger as well. We belong to a community of aspirations in a forum of renaissance and breaking with the past. Secretary General, Burkina Faso would like to pay tribute to the work of the UN system and its partners in this common quest for stability and prosperity. The present meeting, which is being held 80 years after the adoption of the United Nations Charter, is a suitable opportunity for us to take stock candidly of what our organization has achieved. And that is what the topic for this meeting suggests that we do. Better together, 80 years and more for peace, development, and human rights. This is fully relevant in light of our mutual commitment to bring about a world that is more just and to build more effective multilateralism. It is therefore part of this approach that should guide every nation, every sub-regional, regional, and international group. This is the oak anniversary after 80 years that should really lead for us to carry out an introspective assessment of what we have achieved. Rather than being a cause for celebration, this anniversary is in fact akin to looking at an embarrassing fiasco, a collective disappointment and a structural failure. Because we have to be honest with ourselves, we should humbly recognize that even though globally there have been some achievements, there is rather a negative backdrop as a result of 8 decades of optimism that have been sorely put to the test, 8 decades of disappointment, 8 decades of shattered dreams, 8 decades of failure to meet the moment, in a nutshell. That is unfortunately the bleak picture of a UN that many of our forefathers from 1945, if they were still alive, would have struggled to accept. It is therefore difficult to celebrate given such a mixed backdrop to this anniversary. How can we understand the fact that Africa, the cradle of humanity, and where there are so many conflicts, and which represents more than 1 billion human beings, remains excluded from the Security Council's decision-making bodies? How can we accept the fact that peacekeeping missions, financed to the tunes of billions of dollars, are leaving our countries in the lurch and are leaving behind frustration and suffering rather than tangible results? The causes of this collective failure are well known to all, notably the member states themselves, who, after 8 decades, have, within this General Assembly, devoted their energies to defend noble causes and to propose realistic reforms without being successful in this quest. What can we do if the decisions of the General Assembly, which are not binding, are simply making it irredeemably inaudible and ineffective? Could we expect the Security Council to be more successful when it is tarnished by politicization and when it is powerless as a result of its inconsistencies and ineffective because of its permanent divisions? What is even worse is that this Council, whose role today is misused, the Council is in fact a troublemaker as a result of the tacit, underhand and sometimes active complicity of some of its permanent members, who are themselves major actors and financiers of the crises of our time. That is what the Security Council has become. It has become a pernicious body, which, as a result of the predatory behavior of some of its permanent members, they can decide which country will be on the Council's agenda, in which other country peacekeeping operations can be sent, as if to better legitimize their role. We are therefore powerless in the face of the failure of initiatives which are nevertheless good ideas as a result of the rivalries between states and the unresolved crises that are so numerous, the most emblematic of which is the conflict between Israel and Palestine, which has lasted too long. The sinful inaction of the international community in the face of a lack of trust and the authority of states which have been undermined by terrorists. It is time for an awakening and for bold reforms, without which the Security Council will remain an anachronistic institution and will not be able to meet the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, in a world that is changing rapidly as a result of rapid digital change and the persistence of geopolitical tensions, it is critical that we reconsider our economic development strategies. International trade can no longer be conceived through rigid schemas and imbalanced models that have been imposed upon us. Rather, it should be focused on strengthening economic autonomy, local use of resources, and promoting genuine social justice. It has been recognized today that lasting prosperity involves proactive industrialization policies, maximizing the value of raw materials and creating decent jobs, notably for young people. That is why we urgently need to break with the cycle of dependence on the export of raw materials. This is a model that increases our vulnerability and is a permanent brake on our emergence. In Burkina Faso, presidential initiatives bear witness to this determination to build a productive, inclusive and resilient economy which can bring new horizons for our citizens. That is why my country reaffirms its commitment to.
At the same time, social platforms were awash with a different story. Videos, texts, and clips presented as powerful UN address by Ibrahim Traore that framed him as delivering an anti-Western revolutionary manifesto. Multiple independent fact checks and reputable outlets have even shown those viral items to be fabricated, AI manipulated, or otherwise misattributed to Traore. In short, the official podium belonged to the Prime Minister. The glowing combative Traore speech, People's Net, was produced in a different format, disinformation tools. That was what it was. The official record says Ouedraogo says UN's interpretation was delivered by Burkina Faso on behalf of Burkina Faso in the general debate record. The UN transcript and video confirm his presence at the podium, and the themes he raised were sovereignty, Africa's role in international governance, and frustration with the outcomes of some peacekeeping operations. These were his own. These are verifiable on the UN General Debates page and the UN Web TV stream. These are things you can verify. How the fake Traore address circulated. This is how we are going to see how it manifested. The first items, fields of articles are now common in high-part misinformation campaigns. AI generated or heavily edited video clips showing a recognizable public figure speaking at a podium or in a shade, but with manipulated audio, lip sync, or entirely synthetic footage. Fact checkers flagged multiple viral Traore clips as digitally generated or doctored. That's exactly what the uh, space is doing. Reopening the debate, misattributing such clips or quotes, labeled as UN speech when they were recorded at other events, local rallies, military ceremonies, or entirely synthetic. You need to be careful. Amplification or coordinated accounts, pseudo news pages, recycled YouTube uploads, and social profiles such push the same narrative in multiple languages to create an impression of authenticity. Investigations have shown such amplification around the Traore persona. That is what the social media can do. Who benefits? Who benefit from this? And why this matters? The incentives behind these campaigns vary. A highly published confrontational speech attributed to a charismatic leader can create a lot of things. It can mobilize external supporters and sympathetic audiences across borders, shape narratives about sovereignty and anti-imperialism in ways that official announced diplomacy often cannot. Obscure domestic realities, press crackdowns, security failures by replacing messy facts with heroic might. Several analysts have described how pro-regime networks and foreign influence actors can amplify assembled content to punish a leader's image. That matters because false attributions corrode public understanding. It's a fact. When readers accept a synthetic clip as an official UN intervention, two things happen. One, legitimacy or legitimate diplomatic statements like Ouedraogo's own are drawn out, and policy data is polluted by erosion and false premises. How to check? How do you check? How do you know that this means are suspicious by yourself? Now, practical steps that reduce the chance of being misled are one, Check the institutional source. UN speeches are recorded on the UN General Debate page and Web TV. If a UN speech isn't on the UN's site or channel, treat it skeptically. That is one point. The second point, look for corroboration with trustworthy news and fact checkers like the AFP, the Reuters, AP, and dedicated fact check sites. Routinely investigate viral political clips. Several such checks trace the fake Traore items to AI or manipulation. That is that point. Then the third one, reverse search the video and audio. Small edits or reused footage often show up in other contexts. A mismatch between clip metadata and the claimed event is a red flag already. These are small. And then the fourth one, compare language and context. Official UN statements tend to follow diplomatic phrasing and are time-stamped in official records. Viral clips are often edited to maximize rhetoric and shareability. That's the fourth point. And then the fifth point now, watch for identical wording across many accounts. Identical captions or simultaneous posting from many new or unknown accounts suggest coordination. The Monday and others have documented such amplification networks around Traore content. A lot of people have worked on this to verify the authenticity. Final note on accountability and information hygiene. Please, free open debate depends on the slated set of facts. When podiums are real, or social feeds, event speakers, and the rest, conversation is distorted. And the real things officials say, even criticism of global institutions, lose their chance to be heard and scrutinized. It's entirely legitimate to analyze and criticize both the Ouedraogo and Traore administration, and the UN is not legitimate to base that critique on fabricated text or all spawn speeches. Journalists, platform, and citizens all share responsibility in this. Platforms for reducing the spread of synthetic content. Journalists for verifying before amplifying, and citizens for pausing to check reputable sources before you share it. And I think all hands must be on deck. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel.